Last month, they ran to hug you. This month, they barely look up from their phone. And somewhere in the middle of that, something changed. And you don't know if it happened slowly or if someone helped it happen. That question, that specific question, that's one of the most painful places a father can live. And if you're here because you're living in it right now, I want you to stay. Because this video is going to give you something most people in your life can't. Clarity. Not panic, not legal advice, not ammunition. Clarity about what's actually happening and what you can actually do about it. Here's what we're covering today. First, I'm going to explain why children pull away after separation. Some of it's normal, even when it feels catastrophic. Second, I'll show you the specific patterns that signal something more serious may be happening. Not guesswork, not worst case thinking, specific identifiable patterns. And third, I'm going to give you a way to respond. Not react, but respond. Because there's a difference. And that difference might be the most important thing in this video. Now, if you've watched any earlier videos in this series, you've already heard me talk about the nervous system, about how your brain goes into threat response during high conflict situations, and about how that response was built to protect you. But in these moments, it often works against you. And we're going to come back to that today, because what's happening inside you right now and what's happening inside your child are more connected than you might think. If this is your first video, welcome. Everything I share is grounded in research, nervous system science, developmental psychology, and attachment biology. I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I'm here to give you a framework that actually helps. But first, I need to tell you something that your brain does not want to hear right now. When separation happens, especially one with high conflict, your child's entire world splits in two. Everything they understood as safe, as normal, as home, is now divided across two houses, two schedules, two emotional climates. And here's what most people don't understand about that. Your child's brain, the part that handles emotional regulation, that weighs consequences, that holds complexity, that part isn't finished developing until their mid-20s. They do not have the neurological tools to hold two conflicting emotional realities at the same time without it costing them something. So what does the brain do when the costs get too high? It simplifies. It finds a way to reduce the load. And one of the most common ways children do that, unconsciously, without even realizing it, is by emotionally distancing from one parent. Not because they were told to, not because they love you less, because their nervous system is trying to survive. It's trying to survive something it was never built to handle. Research on children and family separation consistently shows that withdrawal, irritability, emotional distance, and even hostility in the first 6 to 18 months is a documented stress response, not a verdict on you as a father. A stress response. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because the story your brain is telling you right now, the one that's saying they're choosing against me, or I'm losing them, or it's too late, that story is your nervous system trying to make sense of an unbearable pain. And it may not be accurate, but sometimes something more is happening, and you need to know how to tell the difference. Coming up, the specific patterns that shift this from normal adjustment into something that needs your attention. And they're more subtle than most fathers expect. I want to be careful here. I'm not going to label anyone. I'm not going to hand you a diagnosis to assign to your ex. What I'm going to do is describe specific behavioral patterns that researchers and family therapists have consistently identified as concerning. Not in isolation, but when they show up together, repeatedly, over time. Pattern 1. Your child uses language that doesn't sound like theirs. They describe you using words or phrases beyond their developmental level, phrases that sound like they came out of an adult conversation they overheard or weren't supposed to hear. A 7-year-old who suddenly says, "You were emotionally unavailable," didn't come up with that on their own. Pattern 2, they can't explain their anger. You ask, what did I do? And there is no answer. Or the answer shifts every time. Or, and this one matters, the answer sounds word for word like something your co-parent has said to you directly. In healthy relationships, children can tell you why they're upset. When their anger is borrowed, it often has no roots that they can reach. Pattern 3, there's no ambivalence. This one is subtle but important. Healthy children, even angry ones, still show moments of warmth, softness, or connection with both parents. They might be frustrated with you and still laugh at something you say. They might say they don't want to come, and then they have a good time when they do. When a child has 0 positive moments, when the shift is total, consistent, and allows for no exceptions, that's not typical childhood ambivalence. That's something worth paying close attention to. Pattern 4, your child reports events that didn't happen, or tells you things about the other household that feel rehearsed. Not exaggerated the way kids naturally exaggerate, not confused the way kids naturally get confused. Specific, detailed, consistent, like they were told what to say, and told more than once. Pattern 5, contact becomes a source of disruption consistently. Plans change at the last minute, calls get cut short, visits get cancelled because your child doesn't want to come, but you can't verify that directly. Occasional disruption is normal life. A consistent pattern of disrupted contact, especially when it escalates over time, that's a pattern worth documenting now. If you're sitting there nodding to all 5 of those, I need you to hear the next part very carefully, because this is where most fathers make the mistake that costs them the most. The instinct you're about to have, I'm going to tell you why it will almost certainly backfire, and what to do instead. When a father sees these patterns, when the evidence starts stacking up, the nervous system does what it always does under threat. It mobilizes. And for the most men in this situation, it mobilizes towards fight. You want to confront your co-parent, you want to tell your child what's happening, you want to correct the record, you want them to know the truth. I understand that impulse completely. And I'm asking you to put it down. Not forever, just right now. And here's why. When a child is caught in the middle of parental conflict, whether that conflict is subtle or overt, research in developmental psychology shows clearly that children who hear negative information about one parent from the other parent don't reject that information, they absorb it. And it damages a child's internal sense of security, regardless of which parent delivered it. That means every time you try to correct the narrative by speaking against your co-parent to your child, even when you're right, you become part of the problem your child's nervous system is trying to escape. This is not fair, and it's not fair that you have to hold yourself back while damage is being done. It's not fair that restraint is the strategic move when you're the one being hurt. I'm not asking you to pretend otherwise. What I'm telling you is the most powerful thing you can do for your child right now is become the stable environment the other household isn't. Not perfect, not without pain, but regulated. Your child's nervous system is looking for somewhere safe to land. When you show up, calm, consistent, without an agenda, you become that place. And that is not weakness. That is the most strategic, the most loving, and the most effective thing a father in your position can do. So what does that actually look like in practice? I've got 3 specific things you can do right now, starting at the next contact. 1, show up without an agenda. When you pick up your child, or when they arrive at your place, your only job in the first 10 minutes is to make them feel safe. Not to ask questions about the other household, not to assess where they're at emotionally, not to figure out what's been said about you. Just safe. Food, warmth, comfort, normalcy. Let the transition happen without pressure. Their nervous system needs to downshift before they can connect, so give it time. 2, name what you see. Without making it about the other parent, If your child seems distant, it's okay to say, "Hey, I noticed you seem a bit flat today." You don't have to explain. "I'm just glad you're here." That's it. No interrogation, no fishing, no setup. You're communicating two things at once. I see you, and I'm not going to make this harder. Children under pressure don't need more pressure. They need proof that at least one parent can hold them without needing something from them. 3, document quietly. Not obsessively, not reactively, but consistently. Dates, times, what was said, what happened. If patterns escalate, this record matters. Not for ammunition, but for clarity. Your own clarity first, and legal clarity if it comes to that. But the act of documenting also does something for your nervous system. It moves you from helpless to active, from flooding to functioning. And here's one more thing I want to say before we close. And it might be the most important thing in this entire video. Your child will remember how you show up. Not the words, not the arguments, not who was right. They will remember somewhere below language in the part of the brain that stores safety, whether or not you were a place they could come back to. So be that place, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. If this video connected with something real for you today, share it with a father who needs it, not because it'll fix everything, but because no man should be navigating this alone. And if you haven't watched the video on what's actually happening inside your nervous system during all of this, watch You're Not Crazy Dad next, because understanding why your body responds the way it does changes the way you respond. And right now, that change is everything. I'll see you there.